while the world is watching Iran, Ukraine just pulled off the most unexpected power move in modern geopolitics. A country that has been bombed every single night for 4 years, a country fighting for its survival with a destroyed power grid and a wartime economy, just became the most important defense partner in the entire Middle East. No, it's not America, it's not NATO, Ukraine. And nobody's talking about it. But we are. Everybody's talking about Iran. But this is very important. So thank you for everyone who showed up today. You guys are doing the right thing. So today I'm going to tell you exactly how Ukraine is opening the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to tell you how the weapon Iran built for Russia is now being turned against Iran. And I'm going to tell you what Trump is doing to NATO and why Putin is loving every second of it. I'm also going to read a quote from a German arms CEO, who called Ukrainian drone makers housewives with 3D printers. And I'm going to read you Zelensky's response, which is frankly one of the greatest things I've ever read in my life. So today, 2 wars, 1 nation at the center of both. 0 coverage. But let's fix that. I'm Slavie. This is SlavaCast, World at War, the only place on the internet where Ukraine gets the coverage it deserves. Every week on Saturdays, I sit down and tell you the stories that mainstream media, quite frankly, is sleeping on. Not the headlines, the story behind the headlines. The geopolitics, the strategy, and the receipts. Because Ukraine is not a side story. Ukraine is the story. Ukraine is fighting for the world right now, for energy markets, for democratic alliances, for the principle that a free nation cannot be erased by force. And it deserves to be front page every single day. So here's what I need you to do right now. Before we get into any of this, if you are new here, hit subscribe right now. Not at the end, right now, because this stream is going to move fast. And I don't want you to miss the next one, next Saturday. If you've been here before, share this stream, like this stream, send it to one person who you know, maybe who stopped paying attention to Ukraine. Because here is the truth. The algorithm buries Ukraine when we go quiet. And we are the ones who push Ukraine back into the news. You, and me, and this community right here today. So also say hello in the chat. Drop a Ukraine flag, drop a Slava. Tell me where you're watching from. And every comment, every like, every share, that is how we fight the algorithm. That is how we keep Ukraine in the conversation. This is how we help. So let's go. I'm just going to check in the chat really quick. Everything's good. All right, I'm gonna, for the moderators, if anything is going wrong, I have the chat open, so please let me know if there's anything. I'll keep my eye on it. As always, I have quiet the visuals for you. It's not going to work. There you go. So before we get to the Gulf, before we get into the billion-dollar deals and the drone blueprints and the geopolitical chess moves, I need to tell you what Russia did this Easter weekend, because you cannot understand where Ukraine is going without understanding what Ukraine is still living through every single night. Zelensky proposed an Easter ceasefire. Not a political stunt, a genuine offer. 48 hours of silence in the skies for the families, for the children who have never known a night without air raid sirens. Ukraine offered peace. Russia launched one of the largest daytime attacks of the entire war. Daytime attacks are new. For 4 years, Russia has hit Ukraine almost exclusively at night, cover of darkness, maximum chaos, and maximum casualties. But in recent weeks, Russia discovered something. And if you send enough drones, hundreds at once, from every direction, it does not matter what time it is. Ukraine's air defense gets saturated. But some get through. In Khorasan, Zhytomyr region, Russia wipes out an entire street. 18 buildings destroyed. More than 100 damaged. One street is gone. A Russian drone struck the area between a kindergarten and a school in Vishnev, Kiev region on Friday morning. A Russian drone struck a veterinary clinic. No animals survived. I just want to sit with that for a second. A veterinary clinic. Russia bombed a place that heals animals. That is what Putin calls a special military operation. Kharkiv Mayor Igor Terekhov said that this is the most intense series of strikes since the beginning of the year. Kharkiv, my hometown, a city just 30 kilometers from the Russian border. Russia sent 4 ballistic missiles into it this week, hitting residential buildings, setting a children's medical facility on fire. Ukraine's foreign minister Sybiha responded with terrorist Russia strikes in broad daylight deliberately to maximize civilian casualties. This is how Moscow responds to Ukraine's Easter ceasefire proposal, with brutal attacks. Here's something else Moscow did this week. Russia failed to reach its own self-imposed deadline. Putin's generals had orders to seize the Donetsk region by early April. They set their own target. They told the world the front was moving, but they failed. Zelensky confirmed it publicly, and Russia's response to that failure? Over 700 attack drones against Ukraine on April 1st alone. 4 civilians killed. 11,000 customers in one region cut off from power. When Russia loses on the battlefield, it bombs civilians. That is not a military strategy. That is a tantrum. The peace talks are completely stalled. Every American, I was going to say diplomats, but every real estate mogul, every US foreign policy resource is absorbed by, of course, the Iran war. And Russia is using that window. Oh boy, is it using that window, because the Kremlin's demand this week, delivered by spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, was that Ukraine withdraw every soldier from the Donbass, not in phases, not in 2 months, today, Peskov said. Zelensky must make this decision already, today. That is not a peace negotiation. That is a demand for surrender dressed in a diplomatic language. And while Russia is demanding Ukraine's surrender, Ukraine is signing billion-dollar defense deals with the richest nations in the world. We're getting there. But first, let's talk about Washington. I do have a poll for you before we get into it. Thank you guys so much by participating in the previous poll. It really, really helps. And I'll just put a new one up. See if you guys like it. All right, here's the poll. What do you guys think Russia wants more, the fall of America or Ukraine? Curious to see what you guys think. I need you to understand the scale of chaos coming out of the White House this week, especially because every single piece of it connects back to Ukraine. Every single piece of it connects back to Russia. And almost nobody is withdrawing, and almost nobody is drawing the line. Let's start with NATO. On April 1st, Donald Trump told The Telegraph he's strongly considering pulling the United States out of NATO. Not hinting at it, not using it as leverage, beyond consideration, he said. He called NATO a paper tiger. And then he said that Putin shares that opinion as well. The president of the United States told a British newspaper that he agrees with Putin's assessment of the alliance built specifically to stop Putin. It's a circus. And then this quote, the quote that made my jaw drop. Ukraine wasn't our problem. It was a test, and we were there for them. And we would always have been there for them, and they weren't there for us. And Ukraine wasn't there for us. Ukraine, the country whose counter drone specialists are deployed right now across Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Jordan, and Kuwait, protecting US bases from Iranian drone attacks. Ukraine, whose interceptor technology the Pentagon is actively trying to purchase, despite what Trump and the administration says, because they can't do it in front of Putin. Ukraine, whose drone operators the entire US military cannot replicate fast enough. That Ukraine wasn't there for us. Now, let me tell you what Trump did to Europe behind closed doors. The Financial Times broke this on April 1st. Trump threatened to cancel the prioritized Ukraine requirements list, which is the Pearl program, the mechanism by which NATO allies buy American weapons for Ukraine. He used Ukrainian lives as a bargaining chip to force European countries into his Middle East war. One official told the Financial Times that Trump was, quote, rather hysterical over Europe's refusal to join the Iran campaign. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte scrambled. He issued a joint statement with France, the UK, and Germany. The Financial Times source made it explicit. It was Rutte who insisted on joint statement because Trump had threatened to withdraw from Pearl and from Ukraine in general. Ukraine's weapons supply used as a threat to start a new war. And then Trump posted this publicly. All of those, this is him, Trump, all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from US. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The US won't be there anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Go get your own oil. By the way, this is from the man whose war closed the Strait of Hormuz. I'm running out of words to say how absurd this all is. And one more quote from this week that I need you to hear. Trump said publicly on record, "I trust Putin more than any European ally." The president of the United States trusts Putin more than France, more than Germany, more than the UK. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk posted what needed to be said. He tweeted, "The threat of NATO's breakup, easing sanctions on Russia, a massive energy crisis in Europe, halting aid for Ukraine, and blocking the loan for Kyiv by Orban. It all looks like Putin's dream plan." Putin's dream plan. And someone in Washington is executing it. So, can Trump actually leave NATO? The answer is not easily. The North Atlantic Treaty was ratified by the US Senate in 2023. Congress specifically passed legislation requiring a 2/3 Senate vote to withdraw, designed exactly to stop this scenario. But here's what matters. You do not have to formally dissolve an alliance to destroy it. You just have to make it so nobody trusts each other anymore. Every ally who hears, "I trust Putin more than you," recalculates. Every defense minister who reads, "Go get your own oil," builds bilateral relationships that bypass Washington. You can break NATO without filing a single piece of paperwork. And that is Putin's dream, happening in real time. Now, the chaos didn't stop with NATO. Let's talk about Pam Bondi real quick. Trump fired Attorney General Pam Bondi on Wednesday night in the Oval Office, hours before his nationally televised address on Iran. The reason? Friction over the Epstein files and what Trump saw as insufficient pursuit of political rivals. Pam Bondi's portrait has been literally thrown into the garbage bins at the Department of Justice. I'm not thrilled about this. I know this is huge news, but they're just replacing really bad people with even worse people. And specifically, Pam Bondi, she needed to testify in a couple of weeks. So they removed her, and now she'll be working in a private sector. It's not like she was ousted to the street. She'll be making lots of money. And they put in Tom Homan, the guy who said there's nothing illegal, there's nothing wrong with partying with Jeffrey Epstein. What do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know in the chat. I would love to hear your thoughts. Oh, yeah, this also must be pretty embarrassing being attorney general and getting fired by a convicted felon. Also true. Let's talk about Pete Hegseth. Another one. And Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, fired Army Chief of Staff Randy George this week. He also fired Generals David Hodney and William Green Jr. 3 generals. Firing your generals in the middle of a war with Iran. Do you guys know why he's firing generals? They're most likely saying this is a terrible idea to put boots on the ground in Iran. Americans will most likely die. Three total generals fired today. They're refusing to put troops in Iran, these generals. Let me know what you guys think. I also have a quiz for you today. Let's see how it goes. This one's a little bit, let me see. How are you guys doing there in the chat? All right. Do a multiple choice here. But no Googling or asking ChatGPT. All right. The question is, quiz, when was NATO founded? Let me know. Oh, you guys are quick with it. I already see it. All right, all right. Okay, let's, in the meantime, let's keep going. So this next story made my blood literally boil. And it is the story that almost nobody in mainstream media is talking about. Ukrainian intelligence has confirmed that Russia shared satellite images. Sorry, wrong slide. So Ukrainian intelligence has confirmed that Russia shared satellite images of Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia with Iran directly before Iran's attack on that base. On March 27th, Iran struck Prince Sultan Air Base and destroyed at least one E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft. A 300 million surveillance plane. The first combat loss of an AWAC in the history of the aircraft. Russia gave Iran the coordinates. American troops were injured in that attack. And Donald Trump has not condemned Russia for it, not a tweet, not a statement, not a phone call. Nothing. Russia helped Iran target American soldiers, and the President of the United States said nothing. In fact, he's lifting sanctions on Russia. Russia is not a bystander. Russia is playing both sides with surgical precision. Russia helps Iran resist Trump, and it's succeeding. Russia helps Cuba resist Trump, and it's succeeding. Trump helps Russia sustain its invasion of Ukraine. Ongoing. Trump recently cleared a Russian tanker carrying 730,000 barrels on a Russian-flagged vessel. Trump spent months tightening economic pressure on Cuba, pushing the island toward blackouts, and then personally greenlighted the Russian oil delivery that relieves all of that pressure. His justification was, it's only one boat. It's only one boat. The same logic that gives Russia every inch, one decision at a time. And it gets worse. The United States has quietly lifted sanctions on 3 Russian container ships. This was a quiet one. I did not see it in very, very much media, actually. So these Russian container ships were the Fesko Monoron, the Fesko Magadan, and the Nikolai. There was absolutely no reason provided, just lifted. There's a document published online. That was it. While Ukraine is being bombed every night with Russian missiles bought with Russian oil money. So here's the big picture that nobody wants to say out loud. The entire Iran war is starting to look like a mechanism to justify dropping energy sanctions on Russia and pressuring Europeans to do the same. A war to make Russia's much larger war easier to sustain. Think about it. Oil prices surged 51% in 1 month because of the Strait closure. Who benefited from 119 per barrel oil? Russia. Russia's war economy runs on energy revenue. And while the strait is closed, Russia is pocketing the difference. And on March 12th, the US lifted some sanctions on Russian oil, right in the middle of the Iran war, right when Ukraine's defense funding is running dry. And Putin is not done expanding his options. Russia is preparing new legislation that would give Putin expanded powers to deploy troops abroad under the pretext of protecting Russian citizens overseas. Sound familiar? Georgia, 2008, Ukraine, 2014. First the law, then the tanks. This is how Russia operates. Always have. Okay, I have a new poll for you guys. I'll definitely see. 90. So the previous quiz was, when was NATO founded? 1945, 1949, and 1961. The majority of you said 1949. You are correct. Oh, I do have a soundboard. Hold on. Oh, I don't know if you guys can hear it. Anyways, all right. New poll. Thank you so much for participating in the previous one. Getting those clicks in. And to get faster doing these polls. All right, new poll. All right, new poll. Do you think, oh my gosh, do you think, where did it go? Do you think the Iran war benefits Russia's economy? Yes, no, or Trump and Putin planned it? Let me know what you guys think. We'll check back in a little bit. Oh, before we get into the big Strait of Hormuz segment, Graham, thank you so much for giving out 5 Slavie gift memberships. You're awesome. Thank you so much for your support. You're amazing. All right. I see what you guys are saying. Trump ain't that clever. No, he's not, but he does everything that Putin tells him to do. So, not to say that Putin is clever, but, it's kind of the most important thing for Russia right now is to make money, is how to keep the war going, how to keep killing Ukrainians, because they can't end the war. All right. This next section. Okay. The Strait of Hormuz. And let me tell you something. Ukraine has seen all of this before. The blockades, the drone swarms, the deliberate targeting of shipping lanes to strangle an economy. These are precisely the tactics Russia implemented against Ukraine in the Black Sea, and Iran is following that exact same blueprint in the Gulf. Ukraine has seen enough. And after Iran armed Russia with the drones that have been hitting Ukrainian cities every single night for 4 years, Ukraine is now seeking its revenge. But before I tell you how, I need you to understand what is actually happening in the Strait of Hormuz, because this is not just a Middle East story. This is your story. This is our story. The Strait of Hormuz, 20 miles wide at its narrowest point, about 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes through this single waterway, basically, every day in peacetime before Trump. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. They killed Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. They struck Iran's missile infrastructure. They targeted Iran's navy. And Iran responded by shutting the strait down. Fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, naval mines in the water, drone swarms launched from shore. The economic shockwaves hit the entire world almost immediately. Now, according to the BBC, approximately 90% of the oil and LNG that passes through the Strait of Hormuz is bound for Asian countries. That supply line has been cut off. China, which built up 3 months of reserves specifically for a scenario like this, is already feeling the pain. Citizens are facing a 20% increase in fuel prices. In the Philippines, a national energy emergency has been declared. In India, 400,000 workers are employed in the ceramics trade, and that industry has been forced to shut down for a month. And the price of oil, at one point, it reached $119 per barrel. NBC News confirmed it, a price not seen since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The BBC reports that the 20% of oil and LNG flowing through the strait amounts to about $600 billion in annual trade. 600 billion frozen. Gulf states have already lost about 1% of their GDP. Capital Economics forecasts GDP losses between 10 and 15% if the conflict lasts at least 3 months. So here's the Iran war told honestly in 6 exchanges. I should have my... All right. So here's the Iran war told honestly in 6 exchanges. Trump, you have 48 hours to meet our demands. Iran says we won't. Trump says, then let's take 5 days and negotiate. Iran says, we are not stopping. Trump says, how about a 1-month ceasefire? Not needed, Iran says. Trump, how about a 1-month ceasefire? Iran says, not needed. Then Trump says, then we'll send US troops. And Iran says, come closer. This is all in the span of 1 week. Now, so getting the Strait closed because of the war you launched, basically, and then telling other countries they have to figure out how to open it is like buying a casino, bankrupting it, and then putting it on other board members to lend you the money to pay back the bank. For as long as the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded, the Gulf nations need to find their own solutions. They've come calling to Ukraine, and Zelensky has answered that call. Before we get into the next section, thank you so much, SSW, for sending out a Slavie gift membership to one lucky member. You're awesome. Thank you so much for moderating and for your support. Oh, twice. I see you did it twice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. See the previous poll. Do you think the Iran war benefits Russian economy? 50% of you said yes. 10% said not really, and 40% of you said yes, Putin, Trump planned it. Oh, just switched. All right. I think it's Putin, Trump planned it. I truly do think that's one of the big reasons that Trump invaded Iran was to help Putin. The timing is just way too precise for it to be a coincidence. Russia was on the verge of, I mean, you guys know, collapse. We talked about this many times. All right. Ooh. Poll. All right. All right. Next poll is, do you think United States is United States winning the information war against Iran? Yes or no? Let me know. Because I gotta tell you, I'll tell you. I want to see your thoughts on that. All right. So, nobody in the modern world knows better what it is like to have to deal with the blockade instituted by an aggressive nation than Ukraine. Nobody. On March 21st, Ukraine's foreign minister Andriy Sybiha posted on X. He called what we are seeing in the Strait of Hormuz painfully familiar. He wrote, Russia did the same in the Black Sea, blocked maritime trade, trying to strangle Ukraine's economy and achieve political and military goals. And he's exactly right. Russia created a blockade around Ukraine's Black Sea ports almost from the moment Putin launched his invasion. Russia's blockade was slightly different from Iran's, but Putin had the warships of the Black Sea fleet at his disposal, actual cruisers, frigates, submarines. Iran is using fast attack boats, anti ship missiles, and drones. Different tools, same strategy, the same goal: strangle the economy, break the will, and force surrender without ever formally winning the war. And Ukraine felt the results. The blockade that Russia created cost Ukraine about 20 billion in annual revenue, much of which was focused on the grain, the wheat, the corn, the sunflower oil that Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, ships to buyers in Asia and Africa. 20 billion every year gone. A slow motion economic execution. But Ukraine found a solution. And I am about to tell you is the most important military story you will hear all year. Ukraine started with ballistic missiles. Storm Shadow cruise missiles provided by UK began striking Russia's larger warships, not in open water, not in naval battles, in port before they could leave the dock. If you cannot chase a warship across the Black Sea, hit it while it sleeps. Then came the naval drones. Remember the Magura V5? Remember the Sea Baby? Ukraine's domestically developed unmanned surface vessels. These things do not look like weapons. They look like fiberglass sleds. Low to the water, almost invisible to radar. No crew, unmanned, carrying enough explosive to punch a hole straight through the hull of a warship. Ukraine sent them directly into Sevastopol Bay, into Russia's most protected naval base in occupied Crimea, and started sinking ships at anchor. And Ukraine's constant innovation means these drones kept evolving to the point where they can now carry missiles and FPV attack drones and interceptors launched mid mission from the moving platform. A fiberglass sled became a multi domain weapon system with no navy in the world had designed a defense for this. Slowly but surely, Ukraine whittled away Russia's presence in the Black Sea. The fleet that was so dreaded at the start of Putin's invasion was chopped down in size by a third. Russia's warships retreated from Crimea to Novorossiysk, hundreds of miles up the Russian mainland coast just to get out of range. The Moskva, flagship of Russia's Black Sea fleet, is already at the bottom of the sea. The rest ran. And today, Ukraine's trio of ports in Odessa are visited by 200 cargo ships every single month. Politico confirmed it, 200 ships every month in a war zone. That is made possible because Ukraine did not just build an offensive strategy. Ukraine built a complete ecosystem: drone boat patrols, aerial interceptors, electronic warfare to jam enemy targeting, insurance arrangements to bring commercial shippers back. One complete package built in wartime, battle tested against a nuclear power. And it worked. What we see here is a blueprint for clearing the Strait of Hormuz. Ukraine's CEO of the Council of Defense Industry, Ihor Fedorko, told Politico, Ukraine has ready-made ecosystems, a fully systematic solution for protecting maritime areas, not a tactic, not a single weapon, an ecosystem. And the Magura drone specifically has the entire Middle East paying attention. The Magura fleet alone destroyed more than 17 Russian naval and aerial targets, including 2 Su-30 fighter jets, shot down by a boat without a crew. The Gulf states asked specifically about the Magura. Can it work in the Strait of Hormuz? Iran deploys fast attack boats, manned gunboats, and drone boats to enforce this blockade. Ukraine has 4 years of experience sending these exact platforms against exactly this threat. And the answer is yes. Once again, Ukraine is literally saving the world's economy. I'm thinking if I should give you another quiz or... Oh, this is an interesting one. See how closely you guys been paying attention. All right. Oh, by the way, thank you so much, Salt of the Red Earth, for giving out 1 Slavie gift membership. Thank you so much for your support. All right, our previous poll is, do you think that Iran war benefits Russia's economy? Sure, that was, oh, sorry. The previous one was, do you think United States is winning or losing the information war against Iran? 100% of you said US is losing the info war to Iran. I agree with you guys completely. I mean, Iran's propaganda game is pretty on point with their, I don't know if you guys seen some of these propaganda videos. Iran is making cartoon Lego videos so it can bypass, because not to show the war footage, so it can bypass and get into a kid's or anyone's eyes. Basically, nobody's gonna block a Lego video. They're pretty savage, gotta say. Forget about even the information warfare. I mean, this administration has no idea what they're doing, let alone have a propaganda campaign. Iran is trolling the Trump administration so hard. It's embarrassing. Oh, before we move on, right, sorry, I had another poll for you. Oof. Thank you so much. CSSW gave another Slavie gift membership. Thank you so much to one very, very lucky member. Thank you so much, SSW, for your support. All right. Right. The new poll is what broke. The new quiz poll is what broke Russia's Black Sea blockade? Oh, wait, hold on. Shoot. Too long. Okay. All right. What broke Russia's Black Sea blockade? A, fighter jets, ballistic missiles only. B, drones, missiles, interceptors. Or C, US Navy escorts. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is way too long. All right, there it is. Let me know. I'll check back in a bit. All right, let's keep going. So before we get to Zelensky's Gulf tour, I need to take a detour because something happened this week that is so infuriating and so spectacularly wrong that Zelensky stopped everything he was doing to respond. And his response is one of the greatest quotes I have ever read, basically. So Armin Papercher, CEO of Rheinmetall, the German arms giant, gave an interview to The Atlantic. And he said this about Ukraine's drone industry. It's just playing Lego. What innovation is there on Ukraine's side? There is no technological breakthrough. Someone's worried that they're not going to make as much money, don't you guys think? By the way, it's not the technology like Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, or Rheinmetall, he said. He called Ukrainian drone companies housewives with 3D printers. Yeah, housewives with 3D printers. Now, Zelensky's response was immediate. Here it is in full, exactly as he said it. If every Ukrainian housewife can really produce drones, then every Ukrainian housewife can also be the CEO of Rheinmetall. I congratulate our defense industry on this high level. Amazing. What a clever clapback. But let's debunk it as well. And let me give you 6 facts that prove Rheinmetall CEO is not just wrong, he's historically embarrassingly wrong. Okay, so fact 1, Ukraine is the world leader in drone manufacturing. Ukraine produces over 4 million drones per year, more than all NATO countries combined, not some of them, all of them combined. And unlike Western defense contractors who take years to approve changes, Ukrainian developers update models in mere weeks based on direct feedback from the front line. A drone fails on a Tuesday, a new version is in production by Thursday, and that speed is what keeps Ukraine alive. Fact 2, Ukraine's drones show extreme combat efficiency. A Ukrainian FPV drone costing 500 regularly destroys Russian T-90 tanks worth 4.5 million. Drones now account for up to 70% of Russian armored vehicle losses on a certain front sectors. Ukraine's maritime drones crippled the Russian Black Sea Fleet, sinking or damaging over 1/3 of its warships. Now, without Ukraine having a traditional navy as well. Fact 3. Fact 3, Ukraine's drones are crippling Russia's war machine from the inside. Long-range Ukrainian drones are hitting targets 1,500 plus kilometers away with surgical precision. In March, satellite images confirmed Ukrainian drones destroyed at least 40% of oil storage capacity at Russia's Primorsk oil export port. Ukraine struck the Bashneft Novo oil refinery in Ufa. Ukraine targeted the Ruskaya compressor station serving Turk Stream, and Ukraine cost Russia more than $1 billion in revenue in 1 week. Housewives did that. Fact 4. Oh, I'm not done yet. Fact 4. Ukraine created the world's first unmanned systems forces, a dedicated military branch focused entirely on drone warfare. No other country in history has done this. Tens of thousands of drone pilots, engineers, data analysts, and AI developers, a force larger than the entire standing armies of many nations in active combat for 4 years. Now, fact 5. The United States is trying to buy Ukraine's technology, despite what Trump administration says. Ukraine is the only country in the world to have developed proven technology for countering the Shahed 136 kamikaze drone at scale, from the AI-powered Zerov-8 to the high-speed. It's okay. This drone is called Pisun. It means dick in Ukrainian. There you go. Yeah, these drones have funny names, but it's spelled P1SUN. Anyways, let's keep going. So from the AI-powered Zerov-8 to the high-speed Pisun at 350 kilometers per hour. The Pentagon is in active talks to purchase Ukrainian interceptors. U.S. bases in Jordan have already sought Ukrainian expertise, and countries across the Middle East are calling Kyiv. The most powerful military in human history is shopping in Ukraine. So tell that to Rheinmetall CEO. Also, fact 6. Ukraine is a global innovation hub for electronic warfare and AI, while Rheinmetall takes years to approve hardware changes. Ukrainian engineers update their systems every few weeks. Real combat, real upgrades, and real results. And if this is playing with Lego, then Ukraine just built a fortress that is outsmarting every defense giant on the planet. General Christopher Cavoli, Supreme Allied Commander Europe, the highest-ranking NATO military officer in Europe, said this about Ukraine's use of the Patriot missile system. Ukrainians are even better at using Patriot than the Americans. In my opinion, this is a true success story. Frankly, at first, I was a little skeptical that Ukrainians would be able to master the Patriot quickly. Now we're learning from the Ukrainians. Now we're learning from the Ukrainians. A 4-star American general learning from the Housewives. Having recently completed a visit to the Middle East, Zelensky revealed that the main topic of discussion with every single new partner he met was having recently completed a visit to the Middle East, Zelensky revealed that the main topic of the discussion with every single new partner he met was the Strait of Hormuz and the tactics Iran has been using to enforce that blockade. Gulf leaders need change, and they need it fast with the Strait blocked. They can't sell their oil, they can't move their gas. The economic damage to their nations is immediate and enormous. For Zelensky, this visit was a chance to build partnerships and to get some revenge on both Russia and Iran. Now, asymmetric naval strategies and drone technology, the same technology Ukraine used so successfully against Russia in the Black Sea, were the biggest topics of this conversation, and Zelensky revealed exactly why. And here are his exact words. He said, "We raised this issue because it is painful and hot, and as we can see for the whole world, because there is an energy crisis. They know that they can count on our expertise in this area." He added that the Middle Eastern nations have seen the success Ukraine achieved in unblocking the Black Sea corridor, and they want the details, and Ukraine is, of course, sharing them. And in doing so, Ukraine is making some of the smartest geopolitical moves in history, building alliances with the richest nations in the world, nations that could help fund Ukraine's survival in its war against Russia. Now, let me tell you exactly what was agreed. A raft of weapons agreements has been created through Zelensky's Gulf tour, most of which will see Ukraine supply weapons and defense technology developed specifically to combat Russia's Black Sea blockade and drone swarms. The Kyiv Independent reports the agreements currently relate mostly to air defenses, and that Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates have all signed on the dotted line. And Zelensky was direct about what this moment means. All agreements that will be legally formalized are extremely important for our country. Ukraine has never had such agreements with this region before. Never. In the entire independent history of Ukraine until now. The deals are set to last at least a decade, covering the export of Ukrainian weapons, including air defense systems, naval drones, electronic warfare technology, software, and, of course, training. And for their part, the Gulf nations are paying using energy supplies. Ukraine's destroyed power grid gets fuel. Millions of Ukrainians who are getting 3 to 4 hours of electricity a day get relief. But providing weapons alone is not enough. The Gulf states need training. Expert groups from Ukraine have already traveled to the Middle East. More than 200 Ukrainian counter-drone specialists are already deployed across Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Another 30 specialists are heading to Jordan and Kuwait, and Ukrainian military personnel operating in 5 countries simultaneously. This is not a diplomatic mission with a briefcase. This is an army within an army. Now let's talk about what Ukraine is getting back, because this is where Zelensky's true genius shines. Advanced air defense systems to counter Russia's ballistic missiles, the ones Ukraine desperately needs, are exactly what the Gulf states have sitting in their arsenals. American-made Patriot PAC-3 interceptors as well. The ones Washington have been very slow to provide. Ukraine went directly to the source. And on top of that, the political weight. Qatar mediates international peace talks. Saudi Arabia controls the global oil price, and the UAE is the financial capital of the entire Middle East. Ukraine just locked in a decade-long alliances with three of the most powerful states in the global south. This is Ukraine building a future that is sovereign and viable, whether this war ends this year or 5 years from now. God forbid. Ukraine to help open Strait of Hormuz as part of the Gulf weapons deal. It's a quote by Zelensky. Now, Iran noticed. Tehran sent a formal letter to the United Nations accusing Ukraine of taking an active role in the war against Iran. Kyiv rejected every word and responded with the receipts. Nearly 60,000 Iranian drones have struck Ukraine since 2022. Iran armed Russia. They licensed the Shahed drone. Ukraine is arming the Gulf against Iran, and Iran is crying to United Nations about it. It doesn't surprise me. This world is pretty upside down, so. But guys, what Ukraine is doing right now is not just smart. It is a Shakespearean arc. It is the kind of full circle moment that makes you believe history has a sense of irony. There is a reason beyond financial incentives for Ukraine to get involved in the Gulf. The new agreements allow Ukraine to exact some very, very, very sweet revenge against both Russia and Iran. Let me take you back. In addition to the Black Sea blockade, Ukraine has been bombarded by drones on an enormous scale since Putin launched his invasion. Russia didn't have those drones at the beginning of the war. It had missiles, glide bombs, artillery. But the mass drone campaign that now defines every single night in Ukraine, Russia had to source that from somewhere else. And that somewhere ended up being Iran. According to the conversation, Russia is almost at the point where it can build, actually it is building approximately 1,000 long-range drones every day, 1,000 per day. And almost all of these drones are Shahed types or variants called Juran, of a design that Iran licensed to Russia around 4 years ago. And that is the link. Iran did not just provide Russia with thousands of drones, it did exactly what Ukraine is doing in the Middle East right now. For Russia to reach its current drone capacity, it needed experts from Iran to go into the country and teach it how to build those drones. Iran happily provided that expertise in return for deepening its security ties with Moscow. There are now production plants inside Russia dedicated solely to building drones of Iranian design. The Shahed 136 strike drone, which Russia calls the Juran 2, is now a more common sight in Ukraine's skies than it is anywhere inside Iran itself. Now we see numbers. In February, Russia deployed 5,059 drones against Ukraine, a 13% increase over January. And in March, Russia capped the month with a 24-hour strike window between March 23rd and March 24th that amounted to 948 drones. 948 in a single day. None of this would have been possible without Iran, without the license, without the experts, without the factories. Ukraine is acutely aware of that. And now the circle closes because Russia is now trying to repay the favor to Iran. The Telegraph reports that Russia has begun supplying Iran with Jiran-2 and Shahed-136 drones, upgraded with all the improvements Russia made during 4 years of war. Range is 600 miles, speed is 111 miles per hour, and the cost of per unit is $20,000. Russia and Iran are trading the same weapon back and forth, upgrading it with every exchange, pointing it in two different directions at Ukraine and at the Gulf states. Ukraine knows all too well the problem that Iran's Shahed drones can cause, and it is now lapping up some delicious irony as it turns Iran's own strategy directly against Iran. Now, Iran's regime thought it could benefit from cozying up to Putin by giving Russia what it needed to hurt Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is cozying up to the Gulf nations that Putin hoped to influence through his ties with Iran, and it is doing it by providing drones and expertise exactly as Iran provided to Russia. Eye for an eye, but make it geopolitics. And Ukraine is going a step further because Iran's Shaheds are attack drones, and Ukraine had to find an answer. Over 4 years, that answer kept evolving to the point where Ukraine developed low-cost interceptor drones that collide with Shahed variants in mid-air, taking them out long before they reach their targets. Now, these interceptor drones cost as little as $1,150 to build, which makes them cheaper than the Shahed drones, which are $20,000, that Iran deploys. And by the way, far less expensive than the anti-air missiles the Gulf nations have been burning through. So the Gulf nations get a ready-made asymmetric strategy that counters Iran's tactics, while the US tries to solve the problem with sheer firepower. The US never expected any of this. Trump himself implied other countries must take care of the Hormuz problem. Ukraine and the Gulf nations are taking him literally. Now, Ukrinform exactly said they know what this moment means. They said our experience is something we can trade for additional security and a stronger negotiating position. We are now showing the world that we are a more interesting and valuable partner than Russia. Countries in the Middle East have long-standing relations with Russia and essentially saw no one else in the post-Soviet space besides Moscow. And now that is changing, even as Putin attempts to support Iran. He's watching Russia's influence in the rest of the Middle East slip away. Nations that once relied on Russia for weapons and security guarantees are now turning to Ukraine. That is dangerous for Iran. It is dangerous for Russia, too. In one of the most unexpected developments in modern geopolitics, a 4-year-plus invasion that was supposed to erase Ukraine from the map has led to Ukraine becoming a key power player, not only in Europe, but in the Middle East. How are you guys doing? We're almost about to wrap up. So let me give you the war numbers for this week, because while the world is watching the Gulf, Ukraine is completely dismantling Russia's military capacity, and almost nobody is covering it. So in March alone, Ukraine's unmanned system forces destroyed 41 Russian air defense systems, including rare S-300V radar components and Tor M2 units. Since December, Ukraine has knocked out 95 Russian air defense assets in total. Ukraine executed over 350 long-range drone strikes on occupied territory in 2026 alone. On the defensive side, Ukraine intercepted nearly 90% of approximately 6,600 Russian missiles and drones launched in March. 90%, a record interception rate. Now, for context, at the start of this war, Ukraine was intercepting a fraction of what Russia threw at it. And in 4 years, Ukraine built an air defense ecosystem that stops 9 out of 10 of the most advanced drone and missile combinations in Russia's arsenal. Now, Ukraine is hitting Russia where it hurts most, the revenue stream. Now, there was satellite images right here, analyzed, by the way, by Reuters, confirmed Ukrainian drones destroyed at least 40% of storage capacity of Russia's Primorsk oil port on the Baltic Sea. Ukraine also struck the Bashneft Nova oil refinery in Ufa, sparking a fire visible for miles. Now, Ukrainian drones targeted the Ruskaya compressor station serving the Turk Stream pipeline and Russia's last gas route to Europe. Ukraine hit Russia's 2 major Baltic oil ports and at least 5 times in 10 days. Cut export flows to about 1/3 of normal volume, cost Russia more than $1 billion in revenue in 1 week. Ukraine is not just surviving. Ukraine is draining Russia's war chest, one refinery at a time, even though Trump is lifting sanctions and trying to help Russia at the same time. And this week, actually, Russia's own defense ministry was forced to admit there was another loss of a Su-30 aircraft over occupied Crimea. There it is. Very well done. They tried to spin this, Russians, an Air Force loss as good news, by the way, because the crew ejected over the territory Russia claims to own. And that's Russia. 50 plus months in, and Russia still cannot safely fly its own planes over Crimea. Russia's total combat losses since February 2022 have now reached approximately 1.3 million. 1.3 million. Putin sent a generation of Russian men into Ukraine, and Ukraine is still here. Odessa is still shipping grain, Kiev is still standing, and Ukraine's defense industry is selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. How you guys doing? Whew. It's a long stream today. Let me check in with you guys in the chat. Oh my gosh. See, SSW is asking, can we hear about the technique of how the colorful eggs are made in Ukraine and their history? I'm not I'm not much of a crafty person, but the techniques are most insane techniques. I mean, you color the eggs, like you do like with like onion peels, you can do with wine. There's also, you can do like candle wax, like very, very thin. I mean, I need to show you that I don't have the B-roll, but maybe next live stream next weekend, because it's going to be Ukrainian Easter. Maybe I will do a segment on it. But I'm not much of a arts and crafts person, and it truly takes like I mean, guys, it's hard for me to just like get like one color of an egg. But Easter in Ukraine is the biggest holiday. It's truly the like people go all out, and it just goes. I mean, this tradition of eggs goes back like thousands of years back. I'll definitely have some history behind that for you guys next weekend. Last time I colored eggs, I actually got this machine, and basically it turns the egg, and you just press the marker on the egg, and then the machine twists the egg, so you don't have to move. The egg moves for you. So just so you guys get the level of my arts and crafts level. So yeah, I'm not sure if I can show you the technique, can talk about it, but I can definitely talk about the history behind that next weekend. Whew. How are you guys doing? You guys are enjoying all the polls and the quizzes? Thought we would try something. Oh my gosh. I'm trying out new backgrounds, seeing how this looks as well. All right. Oh, Oh, that's right. I don't know if you guys watched the Artemis mission. NASA sent men to the moon on April 3rd and started its journey becoming the first manned mission to the moon since the 70s. And the launch was streamed worldwide through the Restream platform, which was created by Ukrainians, Alexandr Huda and Andrei Surzhinsky. So, very cool. Let's talk about Europe really quick and then we'll wrap up, because Europe is sitting on the sidelines of this moment in a way that is going to cost them everything. The question being asked in every European capital right now is whether Europe can defend itself if America walks away. And the honest answer is not yet. European leaders are currently waiting for Hungary's elections on April 12th, hoping that the Orban problem solves itself. The elections, of course, in Hungary. Just waiting, while Ukraine's defense funding is actually running dry, while Russia profits from surging oil prices at the same time, while Putin is writing legislation to deploy troops wherever he claims Russians live. So let me tell you what Hungary did this week on top of that. On March 5th, Hungarian authorities intercepted 2 Ukrainian bank vehicles transporting 80 million in cash and gold from Vienna to Ukraine. The shipment was following legal procedures, and Hungary seized it anyway. No justification, no legal basis, just taken. And EU banking officials are now debating financial restrictions on Hungary, limiting purchases of Hungarian government bonds, potentially forcing tax hikes and budget cuts in Budapest, soft financial isolation within the EU. This is what Orban is willing to risk to keep serving Putin's agenda. And Ukraine's response was Ukraine actually launched a Hungarian radio Hungarian Radio Ukraine, a broadcasting service targeting Hungarian-speaking audiences directly to fight Orban's propaganda, because Orban, he actually controls all the media in Hungary, all of it. Remind you of anyone? So Ukraine said, you seize our money, we'll talk directly to your people. And the broader European funding crisis is real. The United States ended nearly all new aid allocations to Ukraine. So the 90 billion loan is still blocked, and frozen Russian assets have not been transferred. Meanwhile, Russia made more than $1 billion in oil revenue in a single week because of Trump lifting sanctions, because of global prices surged from the Strait of Hormuz closure, because Trump made the Strait of Hormuz be closed. Donald Tusk posted, the Polish Prime Minister, posted what needed to be said. He said, the threat of NATO's breakup, easing sanctions on Russia, a massive energy crisis in Europe, halting aid for Ukraine, and blocking the loan for Kiev by Orban. It all looks like Putin's dream plan. Because it is Putin's dream plan. That's why. And it is being executed piece by piece from Budapest to Washington. Here's the thing about waiting for the Hungarian election. Ukraine doesn't get to wait. Ukraine's army is running out of funds today. Russia is hitting Ukraine with daytime drone swarms today. Russia is writing new laws to justify future military expansion today. The window is right now. Peace isn't free, and Ukrainians are paying for it with their lives. Every hesitation costs Ukraine time. Every delay costs Ukraine's territory. Every blocked loan costs Ukraine lives. If Europe does not want this war on its own soil, on its own borders, rather, it needs to unblock the 90 billion immediately. Transfer the frozen Russian assets to a fund for Ukraine. Put security first. Make Russia pay. Because if Ukraine falls, Europe is next. And no election in April will fix that. All right, guys. Well, let's zoom out all the way out, because what we are watching across every story we have covered today is fundamental shift in the global order, and Ukraine is at the center of it. So the bigger picture, Putin launched this war to erase Ukraine in 3 days. That was the plan. The tank convoy, the victory parade, the Kremlin's new map. And 4 years and 1.3 million casualties later, Ukraine is still here. And in those 4 years, Ukraine did not just survive, it built something. The most battle-tested drone force in human history, an electronic warfare capability the US Pentagon is trying to buy, no matter what the Trump administration says. Because they can't say it in front of Putin. So, a naval defense ecosystem that reopened the Black Sea, 10-year defense partnership with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE, expertise that is now the most sought after military knowledge on the planet. And Zelensky built those Gulf agreements for 10 years from now, because he knows this war may not end tomorrow. He knows Putin is not going anywhere. So he's building a Ukraine that exists, sovereign, armed, economically viable, whether this war ends this year or 5 years from now. This is not a chess move, by the way. This is the opening of an entirely new board. You're not even playing cards anymore, Trump. But yeah, and what is Russia doing while all this happens? Well, Russia is watching its Middle East influence collapse. Nations that brought Russian weapons for decades are canceling contracts. Putin spent years building the Gulf influence through his alliances with Iran, by the way. And Iran, his own partner, just handed Ukraine the keys to the entire region. That is not small irony. That is a catastrophic strategic miscalculation. The war was supposed to isolate Ukraine. Instead, Ukraine is more globally connected than ever. The war was supposed to destroy Ukraine's economy. Instead, Ukraine became a defense exporter. The war was supposed to prove Ukraine had no future without Russia. Instead, Ukraine is building a future that deliberately excludes Russia from the world's most important markets. None of this was supposed to happen. Putin didn't plan for it, Iran didn't plan for it, and the United States didn't see it coming, but Ukraine planned for it. Every destroyed city, every bombed power station, every Shahed drone shot down at 3 in the morning. Ukraine was learning, and now it is selling what it learned. So here's what I need you to take away from today's show. There are two wars being fought right now. The war in Ukraine, where Russia bombs cities on Easter and demands surrender, and the war in the Gulf, where Iran holds the world's oil supply hostage with weapons Russia helped build. And the country at the center of both of them, the country most integral to resolving both of them, is a country that mainstream media has almost completely stopped covering. Ukraine is fighting for the world right now, for the energy markets that keep your bills manageable, for the alliance structure that keeps Europe from going to war, and for the principle that a democratic nation cannot be erased by force. And it is doing all of this while Russia bombs its kindergartens. That deserves to be in the headlines every single day. And Zelensky said it best. This is not just a war between two states. This is a war between two systems, between tyranny and democracy, between darkness and light. And he is right. And right now, Ukraine is the only country willing to pay the full price to defend the light with its cities, with its soldiers, with its children. The Ukrainian Whew. Oh my gosh, you guys, were this whole time you couldn't see my visuals? I just noticed that it's not. Oh, oh my gosh. That would be terrible. Oh, okay, you could. Never mind. Never mind. We'll cut this. You could see it. I don't. Ignore me. So I just want to leave you guys with this. A Ukrainian writer, Mykola Chachol, wrote, "Look at whether you love others, not at whether others love you." So Ukraine is not waiting for the world to love it back. Ukraine is not waiting for NATO to figure itself out. And Ukraine is not waiting for Trump to stop trusting Putin. Ukraine is not waiting for Europe to stop waiting. Ukraine is acting, Ukraine is building, Ukraine is winning on a battlefield in the Black Sea, in the Gulf, in history. And you, right here, right now, can be part of this story. So share this stream, like, comment, send it to one person, maybe who you know, stop paying attention to Ukraine, because nobody's talking about Ukraine in the news, and it's really pissing me off. That's why I had to go hard on specifically Ukraine news. And by the way, if you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet, because this community is how Ukraine stays in the conversation. So every like, every share, every comment That is how we fight the algorithm. That is how we push Ukraine back to the front page. That is how we help. I'd like to thank so much the moderators, SSW Custom Sewing, Broadcast Cat, and Salt of the Red Earth. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been so helpful, and thank you for having my back and keeping the streams smooth. You guys are rock stars as always. Thank you once again, and thank you so much for the viewers that came out, for you that came out today to watch this very, very long live stream. I am so sorry, but I had to get a lot of it out, so I have it recorded, and to keep Ukrainian content for this week. So thank you for being here today. Happy Easter. Thank you so much for not looking away. And as always, be brave like Ukraine. God bless America, and Slava Ukraini. Bye, guys.